This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, there it goes. All right, now we're good. All right, so with that in it being after 11:30, I'm going to go ahead and start. So welcome again. This is the Ashrae Young Engineers Bootcamp. Just so that we're all aware, this training series is for sharing the best practices and career lessons in the built environment. My name is Tracy McKeon, and I'm going to be doing session 2. It is no longer working. Okay. Well, we're having a little bit of technical difficulties, but we will adapt. There we go. So as we do with this and every other Ashrae meeting, we're going to start with our code of ethics. So in this and all other Ashrae meetings, we will act with honesty, fairness, courtesy, and competence, inclusiveness and respect for others, which exemplify our core values of excellence, commitment, integrity, collaboration, volunteerism, and diversity. And we shall avoid all real or perceived conflicts of interest. I'm going to ask that you kind of take a minute to really read this and listen to it, because this actually applies to some of what we're going to be talking about today. And this code of ethics, there is a code of ethics not just with Ashrae, is one of the things I want to share with you, but with every professional organization and with engineering in general. So it's worth just knowing and being a part of. So let's take a second to look, do a seminar overview. So the entire seminar, and this is the second in the series of presentations, is to pass on the best practices and career lessons learned. It's applicable for both new and seasoned professionals in the built environment. What this seminar is not, to be very clear, is a technical seminar. It is not meant to be a leadership or a project management seminar, okay? So it might help for you guys to be aware of who I am. So my name is Tracy McKeon. I am a proud mom, a wife, and mechanical engineer. I have over 20 years of designing mechanical systems throughout Alaska and the United States, and 6 years working for mechanical contractors. So I became an engineer to improve the life of others, and I believe in developing cost-effective, simple, and energy-efficient systems for economically challenged communities. That's my passion. That's what I believe in, that's what I want to do, and that's what I want my engineering to accomplish. I'm also an advocate of STEM, and I believe the youth are the future of engineering. As such, for Ashrae, I am the Region 11 Student Activities Regional Vice Chair. So I also believe in Ashrae and what it stands for, and as such have taken my involvement to the next level. So I'm going to take just a few minutes because I want to be really clear. This is not a continuation of topics from what Craig discussed over the last session. So if you missed the last session, you're going to want to go to Ashrae, Alaska Ashrae chapter website, take a minute and watch it when you have time. But I will take just a second to kind of go over some of these key takeaways for you. So some of the takeaways from Craig's session were to make the client and the design team look good. That's your job as a young engineer. You need to learn about body language if you want to be successful in what we do. You need to learn to communicate like it's 1995. And if you want to know what that means, I recommend you watch the session because it's really important. Be a proactive coordinator. Take the time to learn from facility managers and contractors, not just engineers. Use your tools. A contact list, to-do list, coordination diagram, design checklist. They're all important tools in your career. And take pride in your work products. These are all things that were key takeaways from the session last time. So, what are we going to talk about this time? I'm going to start by talking about the ethics in engineering. There are a couple to remember. things that you should know about. Professional competence. A lot of what Craig talked about last time is how you get professional competence. It's how you maintain it, and it's how you get there. I'm also going to talk about honesty and transparency in our industry and how important it is to the ethics in engineering. Integrity. Protection of public health, safety, and welfare. Impartiality, fairness, and equity. So if you think back to the Ashrae Code of Ethics, a lot of that was transmitted right in that statement, and for very good reason. What is the ethics of engineering? It's your reputation. It's your company's reputation. Your ethics, your morals, your integrity, it shows who you are as an engineer and as a person. It takes more than being technically competent to be successful in our profession. Because what you do and say doesn't just impact you. It can have a direct and vital impact on the quality of life of all the people who touch any project or piece of work that you do. And in Alaska, your work, if it's done wrong, people die. If you have a heating system that fails on the North Slope, people die. So you being your integrity, your professional competence, it matters. Your reputation matters. I'm going to ask if you are to mute your mics, please. Thank you. So ethics in engineering, it's pretty important. It's pretty, it's probably one of the most important things you're going to do because your reputation goes with you. If you make an ethical mistake on a project, it doesn't stay with the project. It doesn't stay with your company. It goes with you. And so how you handle those mistakes are going to be what define you as an engineer in this community. So it's really important to be aware of the ethics in engineering and how they affect you. And I recommend that you take a moment to really think about these things. So what does that mean? What does it mean to you? It means don't sign plans not prepared under your direction or control or outside your education or discipline. That's what it means. It means that if you see a known or alleged code violation, that should be corrected, then it's your obligation to correct it. If not, it's your obligation, if it's not corrected as a result of the project, it's your obligation to report it, whether to the professional body or the authority having jurisdiction. It means when an owner asks you to keep information on a project confidential, you keep it confidential. You don't talk about it with your wife, another colleague, anybody outside of that project. What's on that project is confidential, you keep it confidential. Engineering documents need to conform to applicable codes and standards. That's what this says. These are the things that define engineering. Not knowingly, integrity means not knowingly misrepresenting yourself, not knowingly misrepresenting a product, the design, or yourself on the engineering documents. It means going into a project assuming it's going to be successful. If you go into a project and you don't think you can be successful, you should not be the design engineer on that project. You should gracefully step away and tell them they need to find another engineer. If you do not think that can be successful, you should not be there. That's what that means. It means you're going to treat others with dignity and respect. It doesn't mean that you're going to treat just your design team with dignity and respect. It means you're going to treat everybody involved with dignity and respect. It means that you're going to treat the people in your office with dignity and respect. Down to those, even those that may not be technical employees, because you want everybody to feel respected wherever you are. You don't ever want somebody to feel talked down to or disrespected at any level as a person or as an engineer. Your work doesn't get done. I don't care the best design in the world you have. If you don't have the front end staff to help bid that project, it doesn't get done. To help make sure it's reproduced and bid, it doesn't get done. If you don't have respect for the contractor who's building it, there was no point in putting it on paper in the first place. If it doesn't meet the owner's needs, why'd you do it? Have respect for everybody. You may not always agree, but you need to have respect. So it also means not promoting yourself at the expense of your profession. And there's one big takeaway from the ethics in engineering, and that is in the state of Alaska. Young engineers may not be aware of this. Young engineers may not be aware of this. In the state of Alaska, you could actually be reprimanded by the board and lose your license for an ethical violation. That's only true in the profession of engineering. That's not true if you're a contractor. That's true only as an engineer. So when you go to take that license, take a minute to read what you're actually getting into. So the ethics in engineering. What really is engineering? Engineering is a service profession. If you got into this job for the money, you're in the wrong profession. We don't always work standard hours. We work hard. And you will not always receive recognition for the work and the job you've done. And you should be okay with that. Why? Because that's actually your job description, guys. Your job is to work hard. Your job is solving problems and coming up with innovative solutions. That's what you're hired to do. So when you do it well and you do it right, nobody should have to pat you on the back for it. You just done your job. All right. You did what we hired you to do. But, you know, ethics in engineering. Engineering is a service profession. Not designing to code and safety standards is not acceptable, plain and simple. You as engineers, young engineers, old engineers, I don't care, engineers in general, you need to hold yourself to a higher standard and the highest principles. The Alaska community, engineering in general, it's a pretty small community. You stand on your reputation and your reputation goes with you. So keep that in mind with whatever you're doing. So how do you get from being a young engineer in EIT to a PE? Well, if you're a young engineer out of school and just getting into your career in the first couple of years, I'm going to say welcome. Now I'm going to tell you the real work begins, because your education isn't over. It ain't done. It's just starting. What's required to get to the PE? Well, that's simple. You only need two things: education, more of it, experience. And as of now, if you just got out of school, your experience just started. If you have, and I say that because anything you did before this time doesn't count. It just doesn't. You're essentially a blank book. People may have introduced you to what your career could be as an internship, They could have said, hey, this is what you're going to do. You could have got a footnote on the table of contents of your career, but you didn't actually gain any experience because it doesn't count when you go look at the PE thing. It doesn't apply until after your degree. Something to be aware of. So when somebody sits down and says, how many years experience do you have? I'm in my first year. I'm not 3 years in because I had 3 years of an internship. I'm in my first year. Be respectful of those who have 20 years experience. So what do you need to do to get from an EIT to a PE besides the technical knowledge? You need to find your passion and pursue it. That is probably the hardest thing you're going to do. There are so many different things you can do as an engineer. You could do choose a million different paths, and depending on where you go and what you do is going to matter. But don't let a job pigeonhole you. Take the time to keep looking. Touch every project you can. Look at every topic you can until you find your passion. Because this job isn't easy. Over and over again, what you do is hard. And if you're going to spend that much time doing it, you better love what you're going to do, or you're going to burn yourself out really quickly. So find your passion and pursue it. Find a mentor to guide you. And I hate to tell you this, it's not your job, your employer's job to find you a mentor. It's yours. You have to be proactive in your career. If you want to succeed, you have to be proactive. You have to know what you want and you have to go after it. That's not easy as a young professional. We don't always know how to say what we want. You don't always know how to go after it. But I will tell you this, once you know what your passion is and how you want to pursue it, and once you know that you don't, do I want to be the technical engineer? Do I want to go into engineering management? Do I want to be a project manager? Do I want to go into sales? Do I want to go into contracting? Do I want to be a controls contractor? What do I want to do with my career? Do I want to open my own firm? Where do I want to go? Do I want to focus in on, sustainable energy design? What do I want to do? Is it, what's my passion? I'm going to find a mentor who's going to help me get there. And I'm going to pursue them. And I'm going to say, I've looked into your career. You are doing what I want to do. And I'd really like to know how you got there. Are you willing to help me? Can you show me the tools? Can you show me what I need to do? And not everybody's going to say yes. Not everybody knows how to be a mentor. So if the first person you work with isn't working for you, find another. Don't give up. Because a mentor is going to be the best way for you to succeed and move forward, because they can be an advocate for you in your career. They can say, hey, have you met this young engineer? They're out there. They want to move forward. They want to learn. And they can point you to the people who can help you learn too. So find a mentor. I'm going to tell you, you got to work. You got to work hard. And you got to continue to learn and educate yourself. Don't wait for people to come to you and say, hey, I've got this opportunity for you. Go look for them. You guys are all here looking for different ways to do things. You need to continue to look for those opportunities. As part of the members of Ashrae, you have a lot of those opportunities available to you. Take advantage of them. But look for them outside of Ashrae too. If you see something going on a job site, you see a contractor, you see an owner, you see a facility manager, you see somebody in your office that's doing something you want to do, or you don't know how to do and want to know how to do better, go pursue it. Go talk to them. Communication, or you're never going to learn. Find out why something worked. Find out why something didn't work. Make sure you learn from your own failures, honestly. Create your own lessons learned. Be open-minded. And honestly, be patient. Because this stuff doesn't happen overnight. You spent 4 years in college. And honestly, all you got was a foundation. You didn't learn everything you needed to learn. You're an open book. People are waiting to fill the pages. When you went into your employer's office now out of school, and he said, or she said, I got this job for you, they didn't expect you coming out of school to know how to do it. They expected you had the technical knowledge and capability to do it, but not necessarily how to do it. So you've got to be patient. You've got to know that you've got to learn something new. And you've got to be able to handle negative feedback. And no, it's not personal. We're just doing our jobs when we tell you something's not quite what you thought it was. That's all we're doing. You know, that's not going to work today. The way that's shown on that piece of paper or that plan isn't going to work. If somebody doesn't tell you why, ask. But be able to handle negative feedback. If you say, well, here's what I was thinking, and somebody goes, okay, that's good, but here's what I know is going to happen because this is what we've seen happen in the past. So you need to know that that's not going to work. Here are your other options. Maybe somebody's just going to say, nope, do this. And as the young engineer, you're not signing the plan set. You're obligated to change it. If it's not your stamp, if it's not your signature, and you hand a set of drawings to somebody to sign, and they don't want to sign it with the design that way, you're changing it. So if they don't agree with you, you have to be okay with that. And you have to know, because Craig said it really well last time, there are 12 different ways to do a design. 6 of them are going to be good. And more than likely, if you've got 2 engineers in the room, they're going to argue over the 2 ways to do it. 2 great designs back and forth the entire time. So who's ever signing the design, they win. It's the end of the story. They win. So it's important to realize, though, that you came from an ABET accredited college, guys. So every one of you guys, whether it was Canadian, the Canadian accredited college, or an ABET accredited college, or any accredited college, you guys all learned the same skills. Doesn't matter what college you came from, you learned the same skills. So we're all good with that. We hired you because we trust you, you're competent, or we wouldn't have hired you in the first place. So go in knowing that. Now, from this point on, things change, depending on where you got hired to start work. If you're working for a smaller firm, you could be a general engineer. You could be doing plumbing, HVAC. You could be working all over Alaska doing remote projects. You could be asked to do projects in the States, depending on the firm you're working for. And if you're working for a smaller firm, you could be doing you could start off doing the drafting and then start doing design work as well, or design work and drafting, and then just move into a project management role as you move up. That's the old school way of doing things too. In a lot of cases, we consider that an old school way. You know, you take somebody out of school and they become what we call a draftman. You know, you sit down, you give them a set of red lines and you say, learn from it. You know, and all you see are a set of red lines in front of you. As somebody's a senior engineer is just handing you drawings and telling you to fix them and giving you drawings. And then you kind of work your way up to doing, heat losses and calculations and cooling loads and other designs as you move on. And then you start, ooh, I got invited to go out site. Oh, wait, I'm going to get to go sit down in a meeting. And you kind of work your way up through project. And actually, sometimes that's easier to kind of show that you're progressing and you're moving forward and you're advancing in your career than in some of the ways things are being done now, where you might have an AutoCAD department or a technician department. And as a young engineer, you're being asked to come in and do technical and engineering design, but you're not actually doing any of that drafting, and you're being compartmentalized into doing just that technical design. And then the senior engineer is going off to all the meetings and coming back and saying, here's what you need to do. And you're just kind of passing things back and up and down through the chain. It's more like a assembly line of work versus where you're actually kind of doing the whole job from beginning to end. And it gets a lot harder at that point for people to see. You can get pigeonholed, like we said earlier. And so your voice is a lot harder to be heard in those kind of cases. And so then you really have to learn to become an advocate for yourself. So that's where you have to start finding out what's going on below you. If there are drawing changes being happening and maybe you're not aware, can I see the final drawing? Can I see the changes before they go back down the line? If there were review changes that happened up here and they just got handed back down to the technician to pick up and they bypassed you, ask to see them. Ask to look at them. That's proactive. That's saying, I want to know where my mistakes are. I want to learn from them. And when you see red lines, don't just do red lines. Where did they come from? Why did it get changed? I was sure I did it right. Why did it get changed? And if you don't know why, or you can't figure it out, go ask. Was there something on the project specific that you aren't aware of because you weren't at the meetings that changed that? Was there a coordination item that changed it? How does that coordination happen? Because you need to know that so that you can move up the chain. Those are the kind of things that we want to make sure people are aware of and people know. Those are the kind of conversations that you need to start having so that people know you're interested in the entire process so that you can make the steps to the next level. If you don't, you're going to stay right where you are. You're comfortable. If you're comfortable, you're going to stay right where you are. Being comfortable means not moving up. Being uncomfortable means you're ready to make the next step. So be proactive and a self-starter. How do you do that? Well, one of the ways you do that is becoming part of a professional organization and looking for education opportunities. Professional organizations give you the opportunity to network. They make education opportunities available to you. They also give you the opportunity to see how work is being done by other people. They give you the opportunity to experience and see what you may not be doing in your own career right now. They also expose you to things that may show you your passion. They are a wealth of information. They show you about the grassroots side of what we do, as well as the technical side of what we do. Find the professional organization closely related to your passion. There is one for just about everybody, whether it's healthcare, education, whether it's engineering, whether it's the oil industry. There is going to be a professional organization for you. Look for it. Okay, so how engineering firms operate and how has changed. Okay, I kind of said that before. I probably should have moved these around a little bit. So take a second to learn the structure of your company. Where do you fit in and how others have advanced? So if you feel like you're stagnating and you're stuck as a young engineer and you feel like you're ready to move up and you're not going and somebody's not noticing, look around you. It's the best place to start. Who is moving up? Who have you seen or heard has moved up fast or moved up at the pace you want to move in your organization in the past. Go talk to them. What are the things they've done? Look at their career. You're an engineer. You know how to do your research. Do it. This is your life. This is your profession. Own it. Second, you've got to acknowledge, I know engineers are introverts. This is probably the hardest thing you're going to have to hear from me. You can't be successful alone. I'm sorry. Nobody can do this on their own. Engineering requires working with other disciplines. Not a darn thing you do by yourself. Mechanical engineers need electrical engineers to power. You know, you gotta have a place to build the building, so you can't do that without geotech and structural and civil. You know, structurals need architecturals to frame their buildings out. You know, it doesn't work unless we work as a team. It just doesn't. So get as uncomfortable as you may be doing it, fake it till you make it, guys. Put on a smile, because everything's easier to do if you're smiling. And honestly, it's going to be the hardest thing you have to do is work with others. There's more to do. The third thing, and this is something else, if you want to succeed, you're going to have to do more than that was in your job description. I mean, don't just do what was assigned to you or fix the markups. Reach out, learn the next step. If you want to move up, find out what it is. You know, if you continue to do only what your job description is, you're going to get really good at it. And people are going to come back to you time and time again to do just that work. But you're never going to get anything else. That's all you're going to do. And eventually, somebody else is going to be able to do that work. And you're going to watch them go right by you. Because they're going to want to do something more. Don't get me wrong. There are some of you who are going to be very happy with that. And if that's okay, it's fine. Just make sure it's what you want. That's all I'm saying. Make sure it's what you want. And remember, you got to collaborate and help others. Not just work as a team, but also reach out and help others you see struggling. You know, that shows you having initiative. Shows you wanting to see your company succeed. You're not just looking for a project to succeed, you want your company to succeed. So you want people who are working with you to succeed. That's selfless. That's valuable in our industry. Don't get caught up in the office politics. So here are some things to remember. Consulting engineering is not about your needs and wants. It's about the owner's needs and wants. If you take nothing away from this presentation today, take that. Own it. Know it. Understand it. If the engineered documents you designed and signed can be maintained, operated, and built within budget and meet the owner's needs, you have succeeded at your job and have a win under your belt. That's what that means. If it met their needs as a consulting engineer, when you became a consulting engineer, if you met your owner's needs in the project, no matter how you thought it should have turned out, if you did that, you can tack a win onto your belt. Hold your head up high. No regrets. You can't regret that. You did exactly what you were supposed to do. You did what you were hired to do. That's the best possible outcome you could have had. And it didn't have to be the most efficient and use the most current technology to be the right design for the project or the owner. That's something you have to understand. One of the things I hear more often than not is, I could have done it better than what I put out on paper. I could have designed that better. If they'd only let me use this, if they'd only let me use that. The owner didn't want this, the owner didn't want that. If I could have only had this, why wouldn't they let me use this? He said they only had this up at site, and so I could only use that product, and they wouldn't let me do this. It would have been a better project. That's all about what you want. All I heard in those statements was what you wanted out of the design. But what you put out on paper was what they wanted, what they needed. So guess what? Hold your head up high. That's what you were supposed to do. That was the right thing to do. Now, is it okay to step back and look at the owner and say, I understand that's what you have. Can I offer you this as an option? I'd like to explain the benefits of this to you before you let it go. But if after you've done that, the owner says, nope, I still want this, and it's not a safety hazard, it's not going to affect the welfare and or health of anybody in the public, and it's not a code or standard violation, then you say, okay, and you put it on paper, and you walk away with your head held high. That's what you do. That's the ethics of engineering. That's our job. That's what we're supposed to do. So if you walk away with nothing else from this presentation today, it's about what the owner needs and wants. That's what we're designing to. So own your work. Craig touched on how technically we do that last presentation. He talked about how you own the drafting standards and techniques and how you can own your work through your practices and your design principles. But when you own your work, it's more than that. It's managing your time. And if you manage your time, you won't waste others, yours and others, actually. You won't waste your time or others' time on a project. It's knowing your budgets. Are you working more hours than you should? Don't wait to ask for help. If you own your work, if you own your project, you own more than just the technical side of it. You're taking responsibility for the whole project. Yes, I know that's technically the project manager's job. Yes, I know that's technically supposed to be the signing engineer's job. But if you want to take the responsibility to move into that, how do you know you're ready for that position? How do you know you're ready to move into that job? Because these are the things you're now doing. When you start doing these things, then you know you're just about there. If you're a self-starter and you're proactive, if you're taking the time to QA, QC your own work and fixing it when you see something wrong before you send it forward. If you're willing to go to somebody and say, I need to step back a second. I know I was supposed to send this to you today, but I found a glaring error that I feel like I need to correct before I hand it to you, or do you want me to mark it up and hand you the markups as I see the error in them? You know, you're owning your work. You're taking responsibility for what you put on paper. You're taking responsibility for your actions. You're having integrity. Don't make mindless changes. Find out why. There's nothing we can do more than that. So, I said, ask for help. I'm guessing that's probably the hardest thing anybody does in this career field right now. You come out of school, professor says, I've got office hours, come ask for help. Come see me. How many times, do you kind of think I should go ask for help, but when do I go? And gosh, that signing engineer is really busy. My boss is really busy. They're in meetings. I don't know when to go ask for help. There are a couple of things you do need to know when you do ask for help. First, don't apologize. I don't expect you to know. You're a young engineer. You didn't come out of school knowing everything you were supposed to do in this job. I sent you out there because you might have the technical skills to do it, but I didn't expect you to know it all. I expect there are going to be times you're going to have questions. You're going to need to ask them. Don't walk in my office apologizing for wanting to learn more, for wanting to do the job right. That's what I hired you to do. Second, when you do ask me for help, and let me be really clear. Let me say something too. This is I'm going to be very clear. This is how I feel about this. And I know a lot of engineers agree with me, but it may not be every engineer. So you need to, know your boss to some extent. Be aware of your boss. But most of these would be taken well from any boss that I know. Okay. Many of your senior engineers would be appreciative of this approach that I'm going to talk about here, but be aware that some of this is how I feel like people should do things and the tips that I would offer you. Okay. I'm going to tell you that when you do bring communication to somebody, make sure that it's very clear what your problem is and what you need to say. I wouldn't come one problem at a time. I wouldn't go, I got to this one section of the calc or this one, I have a list of tasks I'm supposed to be working on and I got to a problem on one and I completely stopped everything else I was doing. And I waited until I could go get the answer to that one problem before I moved forward again. I don't recommend that approach in our career. And, if you came to me with one question at a time, I'm probably going to get annoyed at you at some point. I will be really fair. If you can move on, and this isn't the showstopper question of the day, and it's not going to stop you on everything else, and you realize that somebody else is previously engaged and you're not going to be able to approach them, and you can't find somebody else in the office to approach with your question, get a couple of them together. Go in with a game plan to somebody, your engineer's office. Go into whoever your mentor's office, whoever you're going to talk to. Go in their office with a game plan. Have identified your problem, okay? What is my problem? What do I not know? What have I already done to try and solve my own problem? Okay, did I go talk to somebody? Did I look up the code? Do I just not understand how to proceed from the code? Do I just not know how to, solve this coordination issue? Do I have to talk to somebody else that's outside of my, discretion in the project team? And come with a solution. Okay, this is important. Be ready for me to tell you it's the wrong solution. Okay. Be ready for me to tell you I don't agree. Be willing to ask me why I don't agree. But come with a solution. Why would I say that? I'm going to tell you to come with a solution because what I want to know is that you're thinking about this problem, that you actually put some time into it, that you didn't just come to me the second you hit a stopping point and go, this is too hard. I don't want to go on. Because here's the reality. I'm old, forthright admit it. I got kids. I'm looking at most of the young people in this room today. I'm realizing I have kids your age. Okay. And that tells me I want to retire someday. So my goal is to hire people smarter than me. And I want people who are going to come to me and be proactive, and they are going to come to me with solutions that you may be surprised. I may go, that's not a bad idea, or you're on the right path, but you may need to look here or there to go a little farther with that. I'm actually looking for you to come to me with your ideas. I want to know what you're thinking. I want to know that you are on the right track, that your mind is going in the right directions. I want to know that you are thinking about the right problem and how to solve it, and that you have some thought on how to solve it. So that's how I know you really need help, and how I know to help you get to an answer. So I'm not just running off, well, go to this code book or go to that code book or go look at this project or go do that. Or here's here's the answer to your problem. And you go running back and do the answer to that problem, but then have no idea how to make the leap to the next project and go, hey, I ran into this problem on this project, and this was the approach we took. I've got a similar problem over here, and I could tweak that approach to do this. I wonder if that would work. And that's how you grow. That's how I know you're growing. I'm also going to say, be positive. Don't come in my office frustrated and upset and there's no solution, there's no way to do this, I can't do this. I've had people do that. People do that. There's always an answer. It may surprise you, but there's almost always an answer. Even if the answer is, we're going to completely trash this idea and start over with something else. There's almost always an answer. Be positive. Approach the conversation positively. Remember, very few will think less of you for asking, and most are willing to help. Asking for help is not a weakness. It takes strength and courage of character to know when you need help and to ask for it. It is not a weakness. We do not expect you to know everything as young engineers. Even as old engineers, there's a reason it's called continuing education. There's a reason we didn't stop learning. If we did, I'd still be doing pneumatic controls and cast iron boilers with copper fins in every design I put out. Okay? It's not a problem to ask for help. It's only a problem when you spend 3 days before you get up out of your chair and come ask for help. All right? Know your budgets. Remember that statement? Have an idea of how much time you can spend on a problem before you should be moving on and before you should be asking for help. Is your project got 2 days to get done? Should you be asking for help 30 minutes into an issue? Or do you have 3 years to finish a project, so you have a day or two to think about this before you go running in for an answer? Know your budgets. Know the time. Don't waste your time. Don't waste the client's time. Don't waste your signing engineer's time. Okay. So there are other questions that maybe you're not thinking about right now, because those were the technical questions to ask, right? So I kind of went to the dark side here for all those Padawans out there. How do you ask for help when you're working for multiple project managers? Can you say no to additional work? What if multiple projects are due on the same day and they want to give you more work after that? Hey, what if you had a vacation already planned and all of a sudden a project date collides? What now? Smaller firms, it's a little easier to deal with this. Larger firms, this gets harder. I get asked this a lot, and I've come up with a pretty reasonable solution to this. One, put your deadlines on your company calendar so that other project managers can pull up your calendar and look to see what you're working on and see where your deadlines are. But beyond that, get a dry erase calendar for the year with a year on it, throw it up on your wall in your office or in your cubicle, and mark out your due dates and the projects you are currently working on. When somebody walks in your office and says, I have another project for you, you can glance up at that dry erase board and say, you know, I have those 3 projects going on right now. Could you go talk to that project manager and tell me which one's my priority to be working with? Because it shouldn't be your responsibility unless you've been told it's your responsibility to set your priorities in that regard. Can you guys tell me? Or, you know, I've got these 3 working on this. I know so-and-so over here is looking for work. Would it be okay if I draw them in on this project to help me? Be proactive. What if all of a sudden deadlines change? Because that never happens in our job. Deadlines changing? What? I didn't know that happened. Are you kidding me? What happens? Change it on the board. Look at your schedule. Are you going to be able to manage your time? No. Get up from your chair and go talk to a project manager. Go talk to somebody. Ask to bring somebody in. You're no use to somebody. If you are burning yourself out and burning the candle at both ends, because at some point, when you spend that much time working, you're not being productive. You're going to make mistakes. There's going to be a problem. So get up. It's reasonable to ask for help when you've got that much work going on. Yes, some of us have worked 60-hour work weeks. Some of us have worked 80-hour work weeks when it was necessary. And when it's necessary, yes, put in the time. But when it's not, make sure you're sharing. Other people want to learn about the jobs you're working on. Share your knowledge. Share the work. Teach others what you're doing. That way those project managers have multiple people to rely on. It's not all about you. It's about making sure the client gets the right product. And the best way we do that is by making sure our time is distributed appropriately. Work as a team. Okay? So there's a whole nother set of how do you ask for help problems that come up. So what if you feel like you're being treated unfairly? What if you have a personal conflict with a client or a coworker? And there are other difficult personal issues that come up at the office as well. And as young engineers who maybe haven't worked in a professional environment before, you may not know how to deal with any of it. So let's talk about being treated unfairly really quickly here, because I know I'm going to run out of time and Craig's going to get upset at me. But when I say treated unfairly, I'm talking about I'm talking about work-related unfairly. So I recently had a young lady say she was sent out to a job site. She was supposed to have a company vehicle waiting for her when she got there. Okay, it was a remote site. She was supposed to have a company vehicle get through there. And when she got there, the condition of that vehicle was substandard. Okay. And she was a young engineer and didn't know that was just what should have been expected. She didn't know if she could ask for something better. She didn't know what to do. And, you know, was that what was to be expected? I mean, was that what, and I said, well, is that what they would have given your boss? Is that what, is it reasonable to expect that that's the way that you would have wanted your company to be perceived? You showing up on a job site in that vehicle. And her answer to me was no. And I said, in that case, what you got was not what you were expected to have, and it's not okay. Does your direct supervisor know that that's the vehicle you received? And she said, no. And I said, then you need to let them know. But it's how do you let them know? Do you call up and say, oh my gosh, you're not going to believe what happened to me? Because that ain't going to go over very well. Or do you call up and say, I'm not sure you're aware, but when I got here, I got this car and it didn't have the company logo on it like we were expecting. It was dirty, it was unkempt, and it's really badly damaged from a previous accident. And it's just, I don't feel safe driving it. Is there a way, it just doesn't portray the image of our company that I would expect, and it's unsafe for me to be driving. Is there, how do I go about getting another vehicle? And her boss was like, excuse me? That was his response. Her direct supervisor was like, they did what? Oh no, that is completely unacceptable. And the next day she had one. Nobody gave her any grief over it. It just happened to be that the person dropping it off, just randomly dropped it off. The guy who'd usually driven it didn't care, what it looked like or what he was getting, what was happening to it. So he just drove it around anyway. He didn't care. But it definitely wasn't what they wanted one of their engineers driving, Was she being treated unfairly? In her eyes, she was. And in her boss's eyes, she was, because it wasn't expected. It wasn't what he anticipated, especially if she felt unsafe driving it. So they corrected it. How you ask. Think about how you're asking a question. Think about how you're going to approach somebody. Go to your direct supervisor, follow the chain of commands, okay? What if you have a personal conflict with a client? If you know that there is a personal issue with that client, and it's going to cause issues on the job, it is in your best interest and in the company's best interest for you to approach your boss and politely and respectfully ask to be excused from the project. If it is not possible, you need to let them know that you need to limit your contact with that client and maybe have somebody else be the direct line of contact with that client. It is possible, you're going to find times in your career, God forbid, imagine that, we don't get along with everybody we work with. We don't get along with everybody we're going to have as a client over time. But that doesn't mean you don't have to work with them. It doesn't mean you don't have to find a way around it. You can't be rude. You can't be disrespectful. You still have to maintain a professional relationship, no matter what that client does. If that client is doing something that is completely unprofessional, you need to notify your chain of command. You need to bring it to the attention of somebody else, and you need to just step back. But you cannot respond to it because it is your reputation, it is your ethics on the line. You do not want to step down to that level. If at all possible, you need to step back and away. That's probably one of the hardest things I'm going to tell you to do, is to step back and away and not respond when somebody behaves that way. If it is a sexual harassment or other personnel issue, something that is, I'm going to tell you that you need to look into your personnel manuals and talk to your human resources and follow what is set out by your company guidelines. But I'm going to tell you that those company guidelines are in place for a reason. And as young professional engineers, it's to your benefit to read those manuals and to use them. Be aware of what your company policies are. Know what they are. Almost no company I know of will tolerate that behavior. And no company who works for the federal government is allowed to tolerate those types of behavior. So be aware of what your policies are and what the procedures are and follow them. Step back, step away. All right? Make sure you're following your policies. So I made a mistake. Now what? You're an engineer. You're perfect, right? You're never going to make a mistake. Huh. No, we've all made mistakes. I'm going to tell you, I've made them. I know I have. But I will tell you, you need to own your mistake. That's why you own your work. Recognize, ooh, wow, okay, recognize it. Identify the impacts to the project. Develop cost-effective solutions and low-impact resolutions. And identify lessons learned for future projects. So we all make mistakes. How mistakes are handled is one of the ways that you define your reputation. It's one of the ways that we handle our integrity. We're right back to that code of ethics. Man, that sucks, doesn't it? That code of ethics, it just keeps coming up. But so did you find the mistake in design? That's the easiest time to fix it. But what if you're not the signing engineer and it's at the 95% design level, or it's at 100% and the project's going out that day and the signing engineer tells you to leave it? Then you have to ask yourself a couple of questions. Is it a code and standards violation? Is it a health and safety violation? Is it going to affect somebody's public welfare? Maybe the next question to the signing engineer is, can we fix it in addenda before it goes out? Maybe they have another plan for fixing it. Maybe it can we address it in construction with a change order? Maybe there's a reason they're not fixing it right then and there. Find out. Don't just assume that they're not going to fix it. But if it is a code violation or a health and safety standard violation, then you need to recognize the fact that you need to correct it. That will be one of the hardest things to ever do in your career, is either notify somebody that there is a problem with the drawings, whether that be the code official or whether in plan review, so that it can be identified, or whether you notify the client. But I recommend that you have a heart-to-heart with your signing engineer before you do that. It is their responsibility, they're signing the documents, but as you're a young design engineer, you need to make sure that you know that there are implications for this, guys. It's your ethics, it's your reputation. Do you want to continue to work for somebody who does that? Who lets a code and safety violation go? Who won't fix it in the design when they know it needs to happen? That's something you need to ask yourselves. And I know engineers who've had to ask that question. I thankfully have never had to ask that question of myself. I know other engineers who have. I say identify the impact to the project. I say that because sometimes the impacts are not just to you. So when you make a change, it could impact just the mechanical on the project. Maybe it impacts architectural, maybe it impacts electrical. Maybe the fix to this is going to be something that is going to require multiple disciplines. And that's going to impact how you resolve it and how you correct it. So the earlier you identify a problem, I will say normally the more cost effective it is to fix the problem. When you identify a problem, it may matter of who gets involved in fixing the problem. So if it's identified in construction, you may want to bring the contractor in and see if they have a cost-effective solution to the issue. You may want to talk to the owner. If this design mistake or flaw does not produce a code or standard violation, if it doesn't produce a safety or welfare concern, they may choose not to address it at all. And that's okay. Because of the cost impacts, the owner may say, no, don't want to do it. We're just going to let it go. But that doesn't preclude you from saying, how do I keep this from happening on another job? Add it to your checklist. Add it to your design checklist. Find out, what are the lessons learned? How did it get missed in the first place? What could have prevented it? Those are the things you need to look at. I guess I should have hit those earlier, sorry. All right, so respecting the team. Engineering is not an individual sport. You've all played sports. If you wanted to work alone, you should have been an inventor, not an engineer. Okay. It's probably one of the most important things you're ever going to hear me say. Engineering is not an individual sport. Respect the team. Teamwork is collaboration. That means sharing knowledge to develop the best practices for a project. That means sharing your knowledge. If you have an idea as a young engineer, it's okay to share it in the right environment. Know when to share it. You may want to share it with your signing engineer first. You may want to share it with your engineer of record first. If you're invited to a meeting, know when to listen, know when to talk. Ask if you can speak up in a meeting, because sometimes you're there just to listen, as a young engineer. If the owner's there and the client's there, they may want you just to listen because you may not know the impacts of what you say as a young engineer. But what you hear may prompt you to realize that there's something else that you could do on a project. So share your knowledge. Maybe you saw something, or you've been working on a project for another project manager, and they had a design concept that may work on the project you're working on with this project manager and may apply to this project. Share the knowledge. Talk to people. It's important. Technical knowledge can be combined to find solutions. Sometimes the most complex solution is not the right answer. I say that because sometimes as engineers, it's in our nature to look for the most absolutely complex way to solve a problem. I mean, if it took 20 turns right and 3 turns left to get there, we'd take that path before we went left, right, left. Let's be fair. Just because we enjoy the trip. We enjoy the journey of finding out what could have been. But not always is it the solution. So look for the right answer for the project. Not just what you've done in the past, not what you think might be the right answer, but what is the right answer for the project. It may not be this boiler over here that you've been used, but maybe you saw some current technology that might be the right answer for this project because it saves space, and space is the biggest issue on this project. And so maybe, maybe we need to change that. Maybe this owner over here has an operator out here who doesn't have any understanding of DDC controls, so we need to go with electric controls. And you've got a simple electrical control solution that may work on this project because he changes operators every 3 days, you know? So, you know, think about it. Think about the answers. Okay? And be able to respectfully disagree and still commit. So what does that mean? That means that you may not agree with the final solution the team comes up with. And that's okay. But if the team agrees to move a path, as a team, they decide that's the right path for this project. Even if you don't agree, sometimes you still have to respectfully disagree and move forward because it's in the best interest of the project to move forward. So you have to be able to respectfully disagree and still commit. I hope that makes sense. These are some of the hardest things to say. What's my pro tip for doing that? There's no easy way to do some of this stuff, guys. It's just knowing you have to be able to accept it. And it's against our human nature to do just that sometimes. So we talk about respecting the team. And a lot of times you're going to hear that the most hated person on the job site besides the engineer is the architect. But he's also many times outside of the civil engineer, the architect or the civil engineer are typically your prime consultants on a job. So respect the architect. Honestly, the architect knows a lot about all of our disciplines. They have to do their job, to know when to bring people into a project, to know how we coordinate, to know who needs to be coordinating on a project, to know when it makes sense for people to be talking to each other, to make a project move forward. They have to understand that they know a lot about what you do and you can talk to them. So respect your architect. They are the captain of the ship, okay? And it's their job to oversee client happiness. So it's our job to make sure our clients are happy. That means it's our job to make sure our prime consultant is happy. And that means it's our job to make sure the architect is happy. Actually, as young engineers, it's your job to make sure your senior engineer is happy, and your senior engineer's job is to make sure the architect is happy, whose job is to make the client happy. So it kind of all rolls downhill. Do you get that? Welcome to the industry. Okay. They expect open communication. It's an expectation. That's it. Open communication. And they need you to carry your weight. I don't know that that needs much more explanation than that. You need to do your job. And you need to do it when you say you're going to do it. How do you make the architect happy? Give them regular updates. Tell them when to expect changes. Tell them where you are in the job. Tell them what's going on. Keep them posted of updates because they can pass that on to the client, which makes the client feel involved. If they know where you are in the process and they don't only hear from you at the 35% submittal, the 65% submittal, or the 95% submittal, they know what's going on and it's their job to know what's going on. So open communication and regular updates makes that possible. It's also knowing how to talk to your architect. So that's something Craig covered, so I'm not going to go back down there. But know your architect, guys. Talk to them. Do they like to get emails? Do they want you to pick up a phone? You know, some architects would prefer everything in an email and they never want to hear your voice. Some architects want everything, you know, they want a phone call and a follow-up email. You know, know your architect. Find out who they are. Oh, wait, you're a young engineer. You can't talk to the architect. When are you going to see the architect? Any idea? Maybe when you get that first chance to get on a job site? Yeah. So is it important for you to make a good first impression? You bet. You bet. Introduce yourself. Have a conversation. Find out who these people are. Because when you move up, these are the people you need to know. Talk to your senior engineers about who you're working for. Find out who these people are. Find out who these companies are. Who are your clients? Who do you work for regularly? Do you work for one architectural firm? Do you work for multiple architectural firms? Why do we work for certain firms? Why do we collaborate with certain firms on certain projects? Do we have a history? Are they your passion? Is there a passion that you want to follow, and that architectural firm is the one that you most often collaborate with on those type of projects? Maybe you should get to know so that they request you on a project. That's how that works. Damn networking. All that stuff, that's how that works. Keeping the architect happy. You have a happy architect, happy project. Happy client, happy project. That's kind of how that works. So what makes your architect unhappy? Design changes at the last minute. Beware of those impacts. If you call him up on the day of a change and day of a project and it's due and say, I got to make a change and it's a biggie, he's going to say, why didn't you know before? She's going to go, what do you mean? That's not going to impact you. That's going to delay our submittal. We promised this to the client. We're contractually obligated to have this out today. How are we going to make that happen? Be aware of the impact of design changes. Be aware of the impacts of closed communication. If you are communicating with your team, with the client, with the architect, if you aren't collaborating and you are a buoy in the middle of the ocean and the captain of this ship can't find you, your design is not collaborated and doesn't match what's going on the rest of that plan set. It doesn't fit the puzzle. The pieces of this puzzle just don't match up. That means that architect isn't going to want to work with you in the future because it's too hard to get in touch with you. It's too hard to work with you. And those impacts, oh yeah, they have budget and schedule impacts too. Because if they mean you have to redo a 95% submittal because yours didn't match up with everybody else's, or your schedule is now delayed, so, oh yeah, the design isn't going to get bid on time, which means, oh yeah, the materials aren't going to hit the barge on time, which means, oh yeah, construction isn't going to happen until next season now. Yeah, that's a pretty big design change. All because you weren't communicating and collaborating. So when you got out of school, you probably didn't realize that communication was all of what you do. But guess what? Design is just a little part about what we do. Communication, that's the bigger part about what we do. So beware of working outside the team. It upsets the boat. It upsets everybody, including the architects. And we need to be able to work with the architect. We want you, I guess the best way to say this is, even as young engineers, you are marketing for your firms. You are an advertisement for your firm. How you handle yourself on a project, how you handle yourself on a job site is a reflection of your firm. It's a reflection of how other people want to work with you and your firm. So in addition to being just your ethics, it's also how we continue to do our work and how we continue to do our job. So be aware of what it means to work outside the team. Whoops, I'm gonna go back for just a second, sorry. I forgot one thing. Yeah. No. All right. Sorry. There we go. I got too carried away. Know your worth. So I've said all of this stuff, but what I haven't said is young engineers are some of the most valuable engineers in our community. And you may not recognize that, but you are. You bring fresh ideas to the industry. You are cost-effective employees when you work efficiently. When you work efficiently. Note the preface. You can embrace new technology. Some of us old engineers, we struggle with that sometimes because we are set in our ways. As much as we know we need to. You guys come out of with fresh ideas and the ability to take on new technology and embrace it. And you're trainable. Let's be fair. You know, it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks. It really is. So engineers that are self-starters are sought after in our industry. We look for people like you. Now, what doesn't this mean? This doesn't mean you get to be cocky or disrespect others. It doesn't mean you get to be arrogant. It doesn't mean you get to stop learning. It means you can respect yourself. And it means you can speak up. It's okay to speak up and advocate for yourself. You are the future of engineering. Okay, so how to speak out and up for yourself? When are you ready to take the next step? And how do you know? That's a lot. So how to speak out and up for yourself. That takes courage. And that takes the ability to say, I'm worth it. Know you're worth it. And I'm going to tell you that every one of you is worth it. How do you speak out and up? You first know that what you're speaking out for and up for is right. Okay? Know that you have an idea that's worthy. Okay? So take an idea, know what's right. How do you know that? It's defendable. When you say it, you can walk away from it knowing you could defend it. You defended it. This is why I think we should do this. This is why I think I'm worth this. This is why. I know that other engineers and with my experience, not with my internship and experience, but with my experience, I know that other engineers who have worked on similar projects are getting paid what I get paid. I know that other engineers, and I want more. What if I want to be able to go in and express my ideas on a project? Okay. So you walk in and say, I have some really good ideas. I've been put some thought into this project. I understand after talking to you what the goals of the project are. I know what our design intent is, and I have some thoughts I'd like to relay. And here's what they are. Here are I've had some experiences recently, and I think they might be of a benefit to the project. And you give those thoughts, and you defend them. Why do you think they're a benefit to the project? How do they benefit the project? Why are they the right fit for that project? Why should you be putting those ideas forward? And if you can walk away knowing that you didn't disrespect yourself, the project, or the product, then it was worth speaking out about. If you held your integrity, if you could hold to your engineering ethics, it was worth speaking up about. But know how you do it, guys. Don't do it by disrespecting others. Make sure that you're respectful in all you do. And when you can do that, when you can stand up for yourself and your projects, when you wake up at night and go, I should have done that. Did I do that on that project? Do you own your project? When I send a project out that night and I get up in the middle of the night and go, oh no, did I make that change? Do I need to go back and fix that? And I have to get up the next morning and go look and make sure I made that change on that project? Yeah. You're owning your projects. You're ready for those next steps. You're owning who you are as an engineer. Do you know that this is the passion you want to follow? Did you find the mentor? Did those mentor help guide you in the steps that you're taking? You're ready to take those next steps. That's how you know. And if you don't know the answer to that, talk to somebody. Find somebody you trust and have a conversation. Find somebody you trust, because there are enough of us around who are willing to have that conversation with you. Otherwise, we wouldn't be having these sessions right now. Okay? So key takeaways from this session. Engineering is a service profession. Your ethics, morals, and integrity define who you are as an engineer. This is your reputation. Consulting engineering is not about your needs and wants. It is about the owner's needs and wants. Find your passion and pursue it. Respect the team and the client. Engineering is not an individual sport. Asking for help is not a weakness. It takes strength and courage of character, and know your worth. Questions? Yeah. Craig, I don't know how to expand this. Anybody? I mean, that was some hard stuff there.
I really like the point you made about the communication when there's design flaws and errors.
Mm-hmm.
One of my favorite t-shirts is the t-shirt with the space shuttle on it. And they say that the space shuttle didn't explode because of faulty errors. It exploded because the engineers couldn't communicate effectively.
Yep.
I call engineers, there were several of them that knew that there was a problem, and NASA just didn't want to hear it.
Yeah, that would be, wow. I'm gonna go to the chat here. So.
Thanks, Tracy. Great job.
Thank you for listening to me. I'm gonna just follow up with a couple of final things here just before we go. I've got two more quick ones for you. One, save the date. Our session in November, next session is November 11th. It'll be from Glenn Evans. And do you wanna, do we know anything about Glenn's?
Well, so Glenn Evans is a manufacturer's representative, as most of you know. Fantastic individual, and he's going to be providing us from another perspective. So you've had two mechanical engineers. Next, you're going to get a manufacturer's rep and their perspective on the industry and how to succeed. So that will be fantastic. And Glenn's also just a really great guy. It should be a fun presentation. So same thing, that information is going to be on Ashrae, Alaska Ashrae chapter website on how to RSVP for in-person, and then also it'll have the sign information on there. So, and then also give us about a week, and this presentation will also be available online.
Finally, just kind of a save the date. This is 2023. This is a long way out, but the Alaska Ashrae chapter and ScanVac, the HVAC Cold Climate Conference is coming to Anchorage, Alaska. It is the first time it has been held in North America and in the United States since its inception. So it should be a really great conference. It'll be in Anchorage from March 6th through the 8th. And there will be a breakout session in Fairbanks the 9th through the 10th. So there was a save date sent out by Ashrae, so everybody who's a member should have gotten a link to the website and can check it out there. So thank you all. And I'm going to stop the recording now.